Chapter 241. Earl tossed and turned all night, unable to sleep. Even in his dreams, the twisted faces of Leslie and Christopher haunted him. He had dreamt of throwing punches, of smashing his fists into their disgusting grins, only to wake up and realize it was all just a dream. By the time morning arrived, he was exhausted. After a quick wash, he dragged himself to class. But no matter how hard he tried to focus, his mind remained elsewhere. The moment school was over, Earl rushed toward the radio station. Even though he had already taken the day off, there was no way he was skipping this broadcast. Bianca was already there when he arrived, preparing for the evening's show. He hesitated for a moment before calling out softly, "Bianca." She flinched slightly, her body tensing at the sound of his voice. Then she turned around, surprise flickering in her eyes. "Earl, you're here for the broadcast." There was a note of excitement in her tone, but she quickly masked it with her usual calm. Earl hesitated. He couldn't exactly say he was here to warn her because if he told her that Leslie was a complete scumbag, she probably wouldn't even believe him. Bianca trusted Leslie far more than she trusted Earl. If he wanted to stop her from going anywhere near that guy tonight, he needed a better plan. So, he simply nodded. "Yeah, figured I'd help out." Bianca smiled, not questioning why he had suddenly changed his mind. As the broadcast began, Earl struggled to concentrate. He was thinking about how he could convince her to stay on campus that night. Telling her the truth outright wouldn't work. If he warned her about Leslie, she might think he was just trying to sabotage their friendship out of jealousy. Worse, she might push back harder and choose to spend time with him just to prove a point. He needed a reason to keep her here. Initially, he thought maybe he could ask her out for dinner, but he had done it once and got rejected by her. The chances of her saying yes this time were even slimmer. Then he figured perhaps he could say he wanted to borrow some books from Bianca. That sounded like a pretty good idea. Earl could say he wanted to review some professional material that evening. Given Bianca's personality, she would definitely prioritize helping him find the information he needed. With his plan in mind, Earl forced himself to focus on the broadcast. Half an hour flew by. As the show wrapped up, Bianca began tidying up. Earl was just about to speak when he heard footsteps echoing from the door. And then, he saw Leslie walk in. Leslie had clearly put effort into his appearance today. His casual outfit was polished yet effortless, his hair neatly styled with mousse, and a trace of expensive cologne clung to him. Earl had to admit, Leslie looked good. And apparently, Bianca thought so too. For the briefest moment, her eyes flickered with something, maybe mild appreciation, before she gave him a polite smile. "You're here?" she asked. Leslie flashed what he clearly thought was his most charming grin. "Bianca, remember the friends who came to your birthday party? One of them is celebrating tonight, so..." Earl panicked. He couldn't let this conversation continue. Without hesitation, he cut in. "Oh, right, Bianca, can I borrow your History of Finance book? I kind of ruined my copy and really need to review some material." Chapter 242. Leslie's expression darkened instantly. If looks could kill, Earl would have been 6 feet under. Even Bianca seemed to sense the tension. She glanced briefly at Earl before turning back to Leslie. "So, what were you saying?" Leslie forced a smile, smoothing out his tone. "I was hoping you'd come with me to a friend's birthday party tonight." Then, as if worried she might misunderstand, he quickly added, "Just as friends, of course. Everyone knows we're not together, and my friends understand that too." Bianca didn't seem particularly interested. She wasn't the type to enjoy these kinds of events anyway. But considering that Leslie's friends had gone out of their way to shower her with expensive gifts on her birthday, skipping out entirely felt a little rude. Before she could give an answer, Earl cut in. "Hey, about that History of Finance book, can I borrow yours? My copy's missing the last 100 pages. Bianca turned to him, frowning slightly as she said, "But I just saw you with your book yesterday." "Yeah, but I realized the last section got torn out somehow," Earl said quickly. "I really need to review it. Can you lend me yours now?" Before she could reply, Leslie snapped. "You've got to be kidding me." His voice dripped with frustration. "Are you seriously interrupting just to talk about a damn book? Can't you see she's busy?" He had already been on edge around Earl. Now, he was seething. If Bianca wasn't standing right there, he would have loved nothing more than to smash his fist into Earl's smug face. Bianca hesitated. Leslie had a point. Earl's timing was terrible. But something in his expression made her pause. She sighed, then turned to Leslie and said, "I'm sorry, but maybe another time." Leslie's frustration spiked. He tried to convince Bianca. "Come on, Bianca. I already told my friends you'd be there. And it's just a book. How urgent could it possibly be?" She still shook her head. "Earl seems pretty desperate," she said simply. "And besides, I don't even have a gift prepared." "We can buy a gift on the way," Leslie pressed. "I'll cover it, just come. My friends are expecting you." But Bianca had already made up her mind. "I'll join you guys next time," she said firmly. Her tone left no room for argument. Leslie could only watch as Bianca and Earl left the studio. Once they were out of sight, he finally lost it, smashing his phone to pieces in a fit of rage. But Bianca and Earl weren't concerned at all about Leslie's temper. Walking back to the dorm, the sun was setting, painting the sky with brilliant shades of red and orange. The cool autumn breeze brushed against Bianca's skin, and her long hair swayed in the wind, making her look even more beautiful. Seeing Bianca choose him over Leslie, Earl couldn't help but feel a sense of relief, quietly proud of his quick thinking earlier. They walked in silence, neither of them speaking. When they reached the building where the females' dorm was located, Earl waited for Bianca to head upstairs to grab the book. But Bianca stood still, giving him a strange look. Jason felt a little uncomfortable under her gaze, awkwardly saying, "Bianca, could you grab the book for me? I'm really in a rush." Bianca softly replied, "I can give it to you, but the history of finance book only has 95 pages. Earl froze, staring at Bianca's serious expression, suddenly unsure how to respond. He had never actually looked at that book, so he had no idea how many pages it had. Meanwhile, Bianca, who was an outstanding student, knew the book inside and out. She was thoroughly familiar with it. Instantly, Earl's face turned red with embarrassment. He felt a level of awkwardness he had never experienced before. He was also deeply grateful to Bianca for not exposing him in front of Leslie, clearly trying to protect his dignity. She had even agreed to come with him, completely disregarding Leslie's feelings. Earl knew that they wouldn't fool Bianca no matter how many lies he tried to spin. All his excuses seemed utterly pointless in front of this sharp and intelligent lady. Chapter 243. Just as Earl was about to confess the truth, Bianca asked, "You don't want me spending time with Leslie, do you?" Earl hesitated. Before he could find the right words, Bianca's face flushed slightly. Her soft gaze met his, and she said gently, "If you don't like it, then I won't see him anymore." With that, she waved at him lightly before turning around and heading upstairs. Earl stood frozen, watching her disappear into the dormitory. Her words echoed in his mind, looping repeatedly. What did she mean when she said she wouldn't see Leslie anymore just because Earl didn't like it? And that hint of shyness in her expression, was he imagining it? Though logic told him not to read too much into it, maybe Bianca just disliked Leslie and was using the opportunity to distance herself from him. Every word and smile from the woman he secretly liked felt like a tiny jolt to his heart. Earl knew Bianca probably hadn't meant anything by it, but he couldn't help but feel comforted by her words. At least Bianca wouldn't be spending time with Leslie, and based on how she had acted, it seemed like their relationship wouldn't be too close in the future. That thought gave Earl a sense of relief and made his mood much brighter. The next day was Saturday. As soon as Earl woke up, he got a call from Wenzel. On the other end, Wenzel sounded ridiculously excited. Wenzel was excitedly telling him that tomorrow night, at the Rose Garden of Irene Music Academy, the Love Sanctuary, there would be a grand love confession event. A so-called guy with Crane heritage, who was actually just a Malorian student, would be confessing his feelings to Faye. Wenzel asked if Earl wanted to come along. Earl felt a jolt in his chest when he heard the news. Was the girl he once liked finally going to accept someone else's pursuit? Although he had heard rumors about this from Lila, he hadn't expected the day to come so quickly. Earl shook his head slightly and declined Wenzel's invitation. Though he told himself he should wish Faye well, he couldn't quite bring himself to feel good about it. So, Earl decided to distance himself, acting as if it had never happened. Meanwhile, at the females' dormitory of Irene Music Academy, Faye was busy tidying up her desk. She was neat, her desk and bed were next to the balcony, with the blankets neatly folded, giving off a soft, feminine fragrance. The books and music equipment on her desk were organized with care, and a bouquet of unknown flowers and a small succulent plant added a touch of charm to the space. Just as Faye finished cleaning, her phone rang. She picked it up and saw that it was a call from Jerome. Faye sighed and answered, knowing exactly what the call was about. On the other end, Jerome's cheerful voice rang out. "Hey, sweetie, what are you up to? I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "I'm just cleaning my dorm room, Grandpa," Faye replied, already guessing his reason for calling. As expected, Jerome first asked if she was overworking herself, then changed the subject, casually asking, "Faye, when are you going to call Earl and invite him over to our house? He's done so much for us. We should repay him." Faye couldn't help but roll her eyes a little. "Grandpa, you've called about this at least 10 times this week." "I know, I'll ask him when I have a moment, see if he's free, and then I'll invite him over for dinner." Jerome was delighted and said, "Great. Faye, I really hope you two can be together. I've got a good eye for people, and Earl's a good guy, kind, smart, and capable. I feel really good about you two being together." Chapter 244. Faye blushed and muttered, "Grandpa, why are you saying all this?" Jerome let out a hearty laugh. He then said, "Faye, you're at the age for romance. When you meet a good guy like that, it's worth giving it a shot. Money is just a material thing, you can always earn more later. What matters most is character and integrity." Faye stamped her foot in frustration. "Grandpa, stop joking around." Seeing she might get upset, Jerome quickly ended the conversation after a few more kind words. Faye put away her phone and stared out the window, the sunlight spilling into the room, her thoughts in disarray. Sydney, sitting nearby, watched her and asked, "Faye, what are you thinking about?" "A special someone." Faye blushed and pouted. "Stop it, I'm not thinking about that." At that moment, Lila, who had been playing on the bed, peeked over the edge and softly said, "Faye doesn't have anyone special yet." Sydney nodded, her curiosity piqued. "So Faye, what do you think about Bjorn, the guy who's planning to confess his feelings to you tomorrow officially?" Faye shook her head. "Honestly, I'm not that invested. I've met Bjorn before, he comes from a good family, and he's handsome. But I don't really feel anything special for him. He's neither good nor bad in my eyes." Sydney looked a little disappointed. "Faye, you really don't want to give Bjorn a chance. I think he's a great guy." Faye fell into deep thought, sighing lightly. "I don't know, I'm feeling pretty confused about it." Sydney blinked and playfully guessed, "Faye, I bet you're just not ready to give up your single life, huh?" Faye couldn't quite put her thoughts into words. At that moment, Lila hesitated before speaking up. "Faye, are you still in contact with that high school classmate of yours?" Sydney laughed and chimed in, "Lila's just in one of her daydreaming moods again." "Faye, did you know? Ever since she met your classmate, Lila lost a bit of weight. Do you know why?" Faye looked at Sydney in confusion. Sydney grinned playfully. "It's because she's lovesick. She's in love, but it's unrequited." Eventually, the longing turned into sickness. Lila jumped out of bed, chasing Sydney and trying to tickle her. "Hey, stop saying that." Faye smiled faintly, remembering how Lila had nervously asked about Earl on the bus. A complex feeling rose in her chest. After the playful moment passed, the room fell quiet again. Faye listened to music, flipping through some popular campus ballads, her mind drifting. She thought about what Lila and Sydney had said, about the advice Jerome had given her, and about Earl's once eager yet disappointed gaze. Should she give it a try? Faye's heart wavered. If she went ahead, would it be too impulsive? What if it failed? Taking a deep breath, she made up her mind to be brave. She pulled out her phone and called Earl. He seemed surprised when he picked up, and Faye asked if he had time tonight. She wanted to ask him about some lyrics and melodies. Although Earl was no longer the legendary music king, soul, his talent was still undeniable. Once he agreed, Faye felt a weight lift off her chest. Sometimes, it really only did take that first step of courage. Chapter 245. Back in Alnugo University, it was midday, and Joshua was lost in his music. Ever since breaking up with Queenie, he had been in a slump. Meanwhile, Ronnie was glued to his video game, and Samuel, exhausted from his part-time job, was sprawled on his bed, trying to catch some rest. Suddenly, Isaac burst into the room, looking flustered. "Joshua, you need to head downstairs right now. Something's going on with Queenie." Joshua sat up immediately. "What happened to her?" Isaac shook his head. "I don't know the details, but she's arguing with some guy, and I saw him slap her, twice." Joshua didn't hear another word. He threw on his jacket and bolted out the door. Isaac and Earl exchanged glances, worried he might get himself into trouble, and ran after him. A crowd had already gathered by the time they reached the females' dorm. In the middle of the commotion sat an exotic sports car, easily worth hundreds of thousands. A man and a woman stood at the center, locked in a heated argument. Without warning, the man struck the woman across the face, his voice sharp with anger. "Stay out of my personal life, or we're done." Tears streamed down the girl's face as she pleaded, "Hector, I'm your girlfriend. How can you be this heartless?" Hector's expression remained cold. "I just don't want you meddling in my business." Queenie's face paled. If she wasn't even allowed to question his personal life, then what kind of relationship did they have? Suddenly, her best friend, Anya, stormed forward, aiming to hit Hector, but he blocked her effortlessly. Anya jabbed a finger at his chest, seething. "You think money gives you a free pass? Lay another hand on Queenie, and I swear you won't make it out of Alnugo University in one piece." Hector smirked, lighting a cigarette with an air of arrogance. "Oh yeah, I'd love to see who's here to stop me." Joshua pushed through the crowd, his focus locked on Queenie. "Are you okay?" Queenie's face was unreadable as she shoved him away. "Why are you here? Who asked you to come? Stay out of this. My problems have nothing to do with you." The crowd murmured, their eyes darting toward Joshua with a mix of sympathy and disdain. To them, he looked like a fool, someone who gave everything and got nothing in return. Joshua clenched his jaw, then turned his glare on Hector. "Who the hell do you think you are, hitting her like that?" Hector sneered. "Who am I? I'm her boyfriend. I can do whatever I want. What's it to you? Are you mad? What, are you jealous that I'm the one sleeping with her?" A cruel laugh followed his words, dripping with mockery. Joshua's fists clenched at his sides, his anger boiling over. He had always cared about Queenie, and everyone knew it. But Hector's blatant disrespect, the way he claimed Queenie as his and spewed filth so shamelessly, pushed Joshua past his breaking point. Hector had initially planned to put Joshua in his place, but as he scanned the crowd, he noticed the glares from the other guys around him. None of them looked happy. In fact, Joshua's dorm mates looked ready to jump in at any moment. Suddenly, Hector wasn't so sure he had the upper hand anymore. Chapter 246. Hector knew when to cut his losses. Weighing his options, he turned to Queenie and issued a cold ultimatum. "If you still wanna be my girlfriend tonight, get in the car. Otherwise, we're done." Then, he jabbed a finger at Joshua. "You'd better stay put. If you've got the guts, don't move." With that, he stormed toward his high-end sports car. But instead of driving off, he lingered, waiting to see if Queenie would follow. Anya stepped beside Queenie, her voice gentle. "Queenie, don't cry. A guy like him isn't worth your tears." Queenie wiped her eyes and murmured, "Thanks, Anya." She struggled to stand, wanting to leave, but Anya grabbed her arm. Shocked, she asked, "Where are you going?" Queenie let out a bitter smile before turning to face her. "Where else? If not with him, then who do I have?" Anya's frustration boiled over. "Queenie, have some self-respect. After everything, you're still gonna go back to him. She couldn't wrap her head around it. Why was Queenie clinging to someone who treated her like trash? Was money really that powerful? You don't get it, Anya. Tears shimmered in Queenie's eyes as she yanked her arm free. I can't live without him. Joshua suddenly stepped forward, his face a mix of desperation and heartbreak. Under the dim glow of the streetlights, Queenie looked heartbreakingly beautiful, and the sight of her crushed him. Queenie, please, he pleaded, his voice raw. Don't get in that car. I'm begging you. I'll take care of you. Let's start over. For the first time, Joshua confessed his feelings in front of a crowd. His gaze burned with sincerity, his posture unwavering, as if his entire future depended on her answer. For a fleeting moment, something flickered in Queenie's eyes. But just as quickly, it faded. She shook her head. Joshua, you're a good guy, but I. And just like that, she made her choice. Why him? Joshua demanded, his voice filled with confusion. Why are you so set on staying with someone who treats you like this? Queenie let out a sad but firm smile. I'm sorry, Joshua, the world isn't a fairy tale. Life is short, and I need security, for myself and for my future kids. She didn't care about dignity if it meant securing a better life. Queenie wasn't just another college girl chasing luxury. She had clawed her way through life, determined to escape the reality she was born into. She rarely spoke about her background, but the truth was she came from a struggling family. Despite being a star student at the music conservatory, her parents had sacrificed everything to support her education. To stay afloat, she had taken on all sorts of odd jobs, waiting tables, running errands, just to get by. Alnugo University had been a dream, a ticket out of the life she wanted to leave behind. But living in a city bursting with wealth and privilege, she saw firsthand the gap between her world and the one she longed for. She wanted more, but her modest student budget couldn't sustain her ambitions. So, she made a choice, one that wasn't pretty and cost her pride, but it was one that worked. Joshua had once been her ideal, her dream. They'd shared happy moments together. But then reality set in. He wasn't as well off as she'd assumed. He came from an intellectual family, sure, but that meant nothing compared to real money and power. Next to Hector's wealth, Joshua seemed insignificant. Hector's family had status, influence, and the kind of money that could erase worries with a swipe of a card. That was the life Queenie wanted, and Joshua just couldn't give it to her. Joshua clenched his fists. Queenie, don't you believe in me? I swear, I'll give you a good life. I'll work hard, I'll make enough money for us, for our future kids. Just trust me. Queenie shook her head. Joshua, thank you, but, do you even know how much Hector's car costs? It's worth $400,000. That's more than most people will make in a lifetime. She let out a small, hollow laugh. One of his car's wheels alone costs $20,000. That's more than what a middle-class family makes in a year. Tell me, Joshua, do you really think you stand a chance? Chapter 247. Joshua stood there, speechless. He understood the message hidden in Queenie's words. She believed he would never be able to earn that kind of money. Even if he did, by the time he got there, he'd be old, and it wouldn't matter anymore. There was nothing left to say. He couldn't give her the life she wanted, and he knew it. Money was hard to make, and life was even harder. Queenie, having been through her own struggles, understood this reality far better than he did. Her choice was inevitable. The brutal truth of the world had shaped her decision. She didn't want to settle for something small and modest. She wanted the luxury and prestige that came with the Lamborghini, even if it meant losing her dignity, getting slapped around, and crying herself to sleep every night. She was willing to pay any price for that lifestyle. To her, being with Hector meant securing a future where her children would have access to the best resources and opportunities. They would never have to struggle, never have to scrape by, never have to feel limited. Even if Hector never treated her well, at least from the outside, she and her future kids would appear to be living the dream. But if she chose Joshua, then her children would have to fight the same battles she did, working their whole lives just to afford a home, shackled by debt, struggling under the weight of responsibility. Joshua was a good man, but she wasn't willing to live a life of mediocrity. Without hesitation, Queenie stepped into Hector's car, and the sleek sports car pulled away, carrying her decision with it. Nothing and no one could change her mind. Joshua stood frozen, staring at the fading tail lights. Her words echoed in his mind, cutting deeper than he ever thought possible. A short distance away, his dorm mates, Earl, Isaac, and the others, watched in silence. They saw the way Joshua's eyes turned red, the way the tears slid down his face. Joshua had always been the strong one, but at this moment, his silent tears exposed just how broken he was. His dignity lay shattered. He couldn't understand it. Why would Queenie rather be with someone who hit her than be with him? Was money really the only thing that mattered? Maybe, after enough time and hardship, he would come to understand. Maybe one day, he would even forgive her. Isaac couldn't bear to see Joshua like this. He walked up and clapped a hand on his shoulder. Don't let it get to you, man. Just keep grinding. One day, she'll regret it. Joshua just shook his head, his voice hollow. It's too hard. Maybe she was right all along. Isaac's expression darkened. What the hell are you talking about? What kind of man says that? Do you know how many billionaires started with nothing? Your parents are academics, and you go to Alnugo University. Your starting point is already better than most. And what about your dreams? You work your ass off, make something of yourself, and I guarantee you, she'll be the one regretting everything. Isaac was trying to fire him up, but Joshua's response was cold. Really? Do you think it's that simple? Then, you're wrong. His voice was heavy with cynicism. The world's richest man owned a bank. Bart Bruin's grandfather was a wealthy oil tycoon. Even the former richest man in Asia came from money. This isn't some lawless era where anyone can rise up from nothing. The world is stable now, and the class system has been solidified. If you're not born into the right circumstances, success is just a pipe dream. In times of chaos, heroes could rise from nothing. But in a world that ran on connections and generational wealth, someone like Joshua had no real chance. Isaac opened his mouth to argue, but nothing came out. He couldn't refute it. Joshua had a point, and deep down, they all knew it. After a long silence, Joshua let out a breath. Do you want to drink? Let's get wasted tonight. Hell yeah, Isaac said without hesitation. Earl nodded, and Ronnie, who had been listening the whole time, immediately took off toward the campus store, returning with 2 full cases of beer and a spread of snacks. The dorm lit up with laughter and conversation. The guys drank without restraint, drowning their frustrations in alcohol. Joshua, usually the one who never touched a drop, drank the hardest. He downed 10 bottles before the alcohol finally hit him, and in a confused state, began crying. Chapter 248. Samuel held Joshua's head against his shoulder, patting him in an attempt to comfort him. Come on, man, don't cry. Just shake it off and move on. It's just a girl. I've got enough educational material on my hard drive to keep you entertained for a lifetime. To prove his generosity, Samuel even offered Joshua access to his carefully curated collection. Dozens of gigabytes worth of study materials, stored on his USB drive, completely free of charge. By the time they had eaten and drunk their fill, it was already past 2 p.m., but there were still 2 more general education classes left for the afternoon. None of them felt like going, so they decided to settle it with a game of rock paper scissors. Samuel lost. Cursing his luck, he grabbed his stuff and dragged himself downstairs to sign the attendance sheet for the rest of them while the others crashed back into their beds for an afternoon nap. Not long after, Earl was jolted awake by the ringing of his phone. It was Faye. She wanted to know where his dorm was. She planned to come over and ask him for advice on music. Even though soul had become a joke, Earl's reputation as a vocal powerhouse hadn't changed. After giving her the address, Earl got up and was about to head downstairs to meet her when the sudden sound of hurried footsteps echoed in the hallway. A moment later, their neighbor, Kenneth Lincoln, burst into the room, his face full of panic. Guys, you need to get downstairs, now. Samuel's getting jumped. Earl's expression shifted instantly. Where? Who's attacking him? Downstairs. Look out the window, you can see it happening right now. Earl rushed to the window, and sure enough, a crowd had gathered below. Samuel was being held down in the middle of the chaos, fists flying. The sound of shouting and the occasional slap echoed through the air. Screams from bystanders rang out, ladies shouting in alarm, guys yelling in frustration. Let's go. Earl didn't hesitate, sprinting out the door. Joshua, Isaac, and Ronnie were jolted awake by his shout. Without even stopping to put on proper clothes, they stumbled out of bed, slipped on their sandals, and charged downstairs after him. Meanwhile, Kenneth ran off to alert the other dorms. By the time Earl and the others reached the scene, Samuel was already covered in blood, but he was still fighting back. The one leading the attack was none other than Hector. Clearly, he had come back for revenge. And Samuel had just happened to be the unlucky one to walk straight into it. Besides Hector, two other guys were throwing punches, ganging up on Samuel. Around them, a group of well-dressed young men had formed a circle, egging them on like it was some kind of street fight spectacle. It was obvious these were the people Hector had called to back him up. And among them was someone shockingly familiar, Leslie. Leaning casually against a sleek Audi A7, Felix stood with a few other rich kids, watching the scene unfold. His body language made it clear, he was on Hector's side. Seeing Samuel getting overwhelmed, Earl's blood boiled. Without a second thought, he grabbed the nearest buzz-cut guy and slapped him, twice, hard. The sound cracked through the air. The guy yelped in pain. Hector, on the other hand, was attacking with pure rage, like he had a personal vendetta against Samuel. Just as he was about to throw another punch, Earl kicked the buzz-cut guy away and sent a brutal kick straight into Hector's back. Hector went down hard, rolling across the pavement like a ragdoll before struggling to get back on his feet. Joshua, Isaac, and Ronnie saw their chance and jumped in, quickly taking down the remaining guys. One by one, Hector's lackeys hit the ground. Earl rushed to Samuel and helped him up. "Are you okay?" Samuel wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and grinned defiantly. "I'm fine. If I go down, I'm damn well taking a few of them with me." Chapter 249. By now, Hector's crew had also taken notice of Earl and his friends. Especially Leslie. The moment he spotted Earl, his longtime rival, his expression soured. He had been thinking about how to deal with Earl for weeks, and now, the guy had walked right into his hands. Leslie cracked his knuckles, already looking forward to putting Earl in his place. Hector and his guys picked themselves up off the ground, their faces twisting into ugly grins as they locked eyes with Earl and Joshua. Finally, Hector sneered, "You punks thought you could talk big to me before. Today, I'm gonna show you what real power looks like." As he spoke, his crew closed in. Leslie stepped up to join them, eager for a fight. Earl, meanwhile, had already checked on Samuel and confirmed that his injuries were nothing serious. He exhaled in relief before turning his gaze back to Hector. His expression was calm, even relaxed. "You jumped our friend. What's your plan for fixing this?" Joshua and the others had been a little nervous at first. Hector's crew had numbers, and they looked like they meant business. But seeing Earl standing there, completely unfazed, they found their fear slipping away. His confidence was contagious. Hector's grin vanished. He was used to throwing his weight around at Alnugo University, used to people either fearing him or kissing up to him. But Earl had not only fought back, he had won. And now, he had the nerve to act like he was in charge. Hector's blood boiled. Just as he was about to make a move, Kenneth arrived with backup, more than 20 guys from their class flooding down the dormitory steps and surrounding Hector's group. Hector had, at most, 7 or 8 guys. And they had already lost once. Seeing themselves suddenly outnumbered, their confidence wavered. Still, backing down wasn't an option. Not with the ladies they had brought along watching. Hector forced himself to smirk, masking his hesitation. He warned, "You think you can mess with me? You better be ready for what's coming." Leslie stepped forward, adding his own threat. "If any of you lay a hand on Hector, I swear you'll regret it. You won't just get kicked out of school, you'll drag your families down with you." Isaac, however, was too fired up to be intimidated. Hailing from the rough north, he wasn't the type to cower over a few rich kids' threats. And after seeing Samuel get beaten up, there was no way he was letting this slide. "Guys, get him," Isaac roared. Leslie bellowed back, "I dare you guys to make a move." For a moment, the energy shifted. Leslie stood tall, his luxury car gleaming in the background, a symbol of his power and status. Some of the guys from the finance department hesitated. Leslie turned his glare on Earl, his voice dripping with disdain. "I can't believe you, of all people, are trying to act tough. Some broke-ass kid in knockoff clothes acting like he runs the place. You better hope you make it out of here today. Let's see who's still laughing when this is over." Hector looked at Leslie, surprised. "Wait, you know him?" Leslie's expression darkened. "I've got history with this piece of trash." The tension in the crowd spiked. Everyone could tell there was bad blood between them. But Earl just smirked, completely unbothered. He said nonchalantly, "Then, let's settle it. Name the game, I'm in." Leslie's eyes flashed with cold intent. "Good. You asked for this. Don't blame me when you regret it." Chapter 250. Leslie pulled out his phone and quickly made calls for reinforcements. Seeing this, Joshua and his friends did the same, frantically calling their friends to even the odds. Hector and his group weren't about to back down either, calling in their own backup. The tension in the air was thick. More and more students gathered, eager to witness the brewing showdown. Conversations were hushed, and the entire dorm courtyard seemed to pulse with anticipation. Joshua, Isaac, and Ronnie were doing everything they could to rally support. Even Samuel, who didn't have many connections on campus, was ready to throw himself into the fight, determined not to back down. But Earl was the only one who remained completely unfazed. Instead of scrambling for backup, he leaned against a railing, casually smoking, lazily blowing perfect smoke rings into the air like he had all the time in the world. Earl didn't need to call for help. He had contacts outside of school, people who operated under different rules. But he couldn't afford to bring them in if he wanted to keep his place at Alnugo University. And more importantly, he didn't need anyone to back him up because he was his own backup. Leslie clenched his jaw as he watched Earl remain completely calm, unfazed by the growing numbers on the other side. The sight made his blood boil. "You're dead meat, you cocky little punk," Felix spat. "Just wait. In a minute, you'll be begging for mercy." Earl suddenly noticed a familiar face in the crowd as they waited for reinforcements to arrive. It was Faye. Her wide eyes darted between him and the escalating conflict, clearly in disbelief. She hadn't expected Earl to be involved in something like this, let alone leading it. But she was just a girl, even if she wanted to, she didn't have the courage to pull him out of the situation. And she wasn't alone. Anna and the other girls from the shared dorm room had also gathered, drawn in by the commotion. None of them had expected Earl and Joshua to be the center of today's chaos. Then again, it had all started because of Joshua and Queenie. Before anyone could react, the crowd stirred again. A slim figure pushed through, running straight toward Joshua. "Joshua, get out of here!" Queenie's panicked voice rang out. "Hector's calling a ton of guys, you don't stand a chance. If you don't want to get hurt, leave now." She was breathless, clearly desperate to get him away before things escalated further. But Joshua didn't move. His expression was set, his posture firm. There were moments in life when a man simply couldn't back down. If he ran today, he wouldn't just lose Queenie, he'd lose the respect of everyone who stood by him. Seeing his determination, Queenie's desperation grew. She turned to Hector, pleading, "Hector, please. He and I have nothing to do with each other anymore. Let him go. There's no honor in this fight, and it won't do you any good." But her words only enraged Hector further. He shoved Queenie aside, pointing straight at Joshua. "You spineless piece of trash, don't even think about running. I'll make sure to put you back in your place today." Joshua's gaze turned ice cold. Whoever runs is a coward. There was no turning back now. Insults were exchanged, getting uglier with every second. The fight was inevitable. A few students thought about reporting the situation to campus security, but Hector's guys had already positioned themselves to block any snitches from slipping away. One by one, the reinforcements arrived. As the numbers swelled, it became painfully obvious, Joshua, Isaac, and Ronnie were outmatched. Their backup was scattered, their group a mix of average students, skinny guys with glasses and regular students with no real fighting experience. Hector and Leslie, on the other hand, had called in the heavy hitters. Their group was stacked with varsity athletes, basketball and soccer players, with buff built. Many of them were from the sports academy, their tall, muscular frames radiating raw physical power. They weren't just here to watch. They were here to fight.